Están saliendo here. I'm recording. Well, remember that last class we talked about humanism. We started talking about humanism, but we haven't finished. We still have to develop some ideas that I think are important for teachers to take into consideration in terms of their relevance in the classroom, right? And in the learning process, teaching learning process, if you want to call it like that, right? Now, what about Carl Rogers' main ideas about human beings? Which in fact, this is an idea that is taken and developed and sustained and supported in social interactionism. Most of the ideas that are supported by humanistic, let's say, pioneers are true to those who have developed the social interactionism movement, but in fact, the social interactionism movement has other, let's say, ideas that are added to the ones of humanism. Okay, any ideas you want to share on Carl Rogers?
He proposes a premise that said that human beings have a natural potential for learning and that they will learn better what they like most.
That's it. Okay, so perhaps we can think of in the future, right? Those theories about the multiple intelligences, right? In a way, I'm not saying that they are derived from Carl Rogers' postulates, but let's say they are closely connected, right? Now, the fact that we are all potential learners, that is true. And there is a concept that perhaps I'm going to write it on the chat you have heard of, that is that of ubiquitous learning. And what is that?
I have no idea.
No idea? Well, it means that wherever you are, right, you learn. And that, let's say, we are not learners only in the classroom. We are learners anywhere, everywhere, all right? And at any time. That learning is non-stop. There may be even learning that has to do with schoolwork that takes place, let's say, in your house, right, in your home, in the street, with the social group you belong to. Why? Because there is always new information that we acquire. So imagine that I ask my students to do some kind of presentation as you did, right? And they have to organize it into slides. They have to look for concepts that we have discussed in class and perhaps, let's say, in a way, develop more into deep these concepts. Now, they will have to use perhaps some apps or some resources, right, that are on the web, right? And they will have to organize and, let's say, give priority to some concepts over others, etc. And then all that is learning. The fact that you decide to use such, let's say, or a certain application, right? A certain app and an organization, that takes learning, because there are techniques or strategies that you need to develop on your own in order to take that into, or make it into a presentation. So that is ubiquitous learning, because you are not just learning the concepts, but it goes beyond that. Okay, and the fact that we are picking up information from different sources all the time, and that in a way has been highlighted by the times that are running because we have more access to information. In fact, we are more exposed to information. That's why ubiquitous learning has become, let's say, commonplace and has been fostered not by teachers, but by the lifestyles that we have. And we celebrate that. Okay, now perhaps ubiquitous learning, if you think about Abraham Maslow's pyramid, where would you, let's say, place this? In the needs. It's easy.
The big ones?
Sorry? I couldn't hear you, that's why.
The big needs.
In the limits, in the being needs.
The big.
Yes, now can you sort of restrict it to a more particular, let's say, layer? I don't know if you have at hand the pyramid that appears in the book.
The cognitive needs.
The cognitive needs. Now, are the cognitive needs only being needs?
Can you repeat the question?
I mean, are the cognitive needs, let's say, needs that are just being, what would you say? Or are they deficiency ones? It's very difficult. In fact, if you take a look at the pyramid, you may say, yes, this is the way it is, or the way that Maslow has, in a way, organized them. But the thing is, can you do in this life without knowing how to use a computer or a cell phone?
No. No.
So I believe that it becomes a deficiency need, even though it is a cognitive one. So to draw lines, right, in between layers, the more sophisticated our lifestyles become, it becomes more difficult. Perhaps if you think about the man in ancient times, it would be easier to draw lines in such a way. But nowadays, that is not so easy, and it much depends to the culture you belong to, what your being needs would be and what your, let's say, deficiency needs will be. You see? Now, in humanism, when we talk about Carl Rogers presents this idea of, let's say, learning how to learn, which in fact, it is an idea of, are we aware how we learn, how we study, how we incorporate new information, let's say, more proficiently? Well, in the past, as we used this habit formation approach on learning, and just, I mean, I'm not talking about language as a habit, just for languages. I mean, everything you learned was part of a habit formation, let's say, idea, or this, at that time, the psychologists believe that as much as you repeat it, you would learn, right? That we were just creatures of that learned through repetition. But that does not, or did not only apply to the language classroom. It applied to all the fields of knowledge, right? I learned the order of the planets by memorizing them, right? And using mnemonic references, for example, which are techniques of memorization. Now, The thing is that I can, in a way, acquaint for my learning, right? I know how I did it. And perhaps I would say that is the best way, memorizing the order of the planets by repeating in a sort of chant the names. And I think it is efficient, right? Effective, sorry, right? And well, but the idea is, how do you study? How do you learn best? And that is a question that Carl Rogers asks not only the teachers, but also the learners. He wants the learners to think about these individual processes that we carry out in order to do some learning. But how do you foster that in the classroom? Of course, you need to talk about learning with the students. You need to conduct some kind of, let's say, debate, some kind of survey from time to time, so as to, in a way, make your teaching proposal much better based on the learning habits that the students have. Okay? Especially think about this: visual, auditory, and kinesthetic learners. They are this would be a very, very simple way of organizing learning styles. Now, if you are a visual learner, the teacher generally tends to organize his or her, let's say, lesson plan or presentation or a set of tasks, perhaps thinking about, not thinking, but not on purpose, but focusing on visual, let's say, stimuli. And if you have auditory and kinesthetic learners, in a way, they will not find it difficult to do. They won't find it as interesting as the visual learners. So the idea that we are fully aware of a student's learning styles, right, helps us make our own teaching more democratic. Now, I should say that these, let's say, context that we are having makes it very difficult. My dog is behind. Makes it very difficult to, let's say, cater for all the styles, right? Because it is a very rigid source for us to display a variety of activities, okay? Go away, doggy. She wants to join the lesson. Okay, well, any other concepts that that you have questions, or shall we go on? Any questions you have? Right?
No.
No? And what about this idea of counterbalancing freedom and sense of responsibility? What do you think about that? Because we probably read the fact that individual choices are welcome, right? In a humanistic kind of classroom. You think, why is it that freedom and sense of responsibility are in a way counterbalanced?
Because the students should be responsible for their own learning.
Oh, Jessica, it's impossible to. Maybe if you speak, I mean, lower, in a lower volume, I can understand what you mean.
Because the students, should be responsible for their own learning.
Responsible, yes. In fact, you have to give them freedom to decide. I mean, not on the curriculum, perhaps, right? But in these choices, remember, and when you give them group work and you assign, let's say, topics or tasks in the group, you can monitor that, but the students have to take on this responsibility. Okay, and that will help them to make decisions on their own without your supervision, and that is freedom. But at the same time, right, they have to comply with certain, let's say, assignments that include responsibility. Now, I may say, whenever I give my students a choice, they find it very difficult to decide. For example, imagine I say, okay, what shall we do today? Shall we start by talking about the novel? I think I gave you this example. Or shall we do some language collocations work today at the very beginning of the lesson? Okay, let's see, let's vote. And whatever you want, teacher, they say. And why is it so? Because they cannot decide? Because they don't have a preference? No, because they are not familiar with, let's say, the fact that they can choose one or the other. In fact, I'm not giving them much freedom, right? I'm giving them two, let's say, options, but that's a starting point. Well, for example, what I love doing, and I used to do it, there was a time when I replaced Silvina in didactics, and whenever I organized a term test, I gave the students tasks that they, I mean, imagine I gave them 5 tasks and they had to choose 3. So there was choice even in, I mean, because I like it that way. I think that you need to be able to choose to write or to do something that you believe you will give your best, or you can show the best of you. And that's freedom. Right? And it is responsibility too. Because if you have chosen, say, option A, you have to show that you are doing it because you really know about it. So I cannot, I mean, I wouldn't, the teacher would not accept a very, very simple development or very short development of a question that you have chosen. Because if you have chosen it, it's because you are an expert. So your choice, right, makes you be responsible, or even more responsible. You see? And those elements have to do with democracy life in the classroom, etc. Okay? Well, let's see, because I have made some notes, I don't want to miss some concepts. There was a dichotomy in a way in terms of the curriculum and the individuality in school life. And that is what we were talking, right? That, well, in some schools that respond to the humanistic approach, the curriculum is designed in, let's say, meanwhile the students are taking the lessons. Because it seems that the curriculum arises out of the interests and inclinations of the students, which is not possible for a state school or any private school that has, let's say, an average number of students. Why? Because you cannot, let's say, cater for individualities in such a way. All right, because I mean, the only, you can do that if you have only, remember, 10 to 12 students, and we talk about Montessori schools. And there are some others, the Waldorf, I think, I don't know if you have heard of them, right? There are in Buenos Aires some schools like that, but they are tremendously expensive. We tend to, let's say, in a way, prepare or follow curriculums that are completely homogeneous. And they are based on let's say, generalizations about students and assumptions that they are all alike. We have to assume, because otherwise, how can you organize your teaching if you have 25 students in the classroom? And now we have one element that makes it even more difficult. Now that many students with different learning, let's say, pace and abilities have been incorporated into the classroom. And I don't think that we teachers are prepared to face such a challenge. Not because we don't want to, it's because we have not been trained to do so. Right? We need a lot of training, and we also need the experts by our side all the time, not at times as it is. I wish that in the future we have more counseling in this aspect. In fact, we have made a point of this with all the teachers in our teaching program, that we want, let's say, to have, let's say, some kind of expert training in a subject that is for, let's say, learners with different learning difficulties. I mean, it's not the same the way you are going to approach language contents to a student that is, let's say, that has Asperger, right, syndrome. And if you think of a student whose hearing, right, whose, let's say, hearing is not optimal, right? And sometimes you have two students with these, let's say, differences in the same classroom, and then you have the ones that are part of the general or standard or average student. And how can you divide yourself in so many? I remember that I used to have a student in Borges School who had hearing problems. He was not deaf, but he couldn't, let's say, hear very well. And in a way, he was really interested in English. Apparently, he liked it, right? And sometimes I forgot that I had to speak louder for him. But it's not that I did it out of neglecting his condition. No, it's just that sometimes, I mean, you are concentrated on the others, or you are not used to it. And in fact, I was in a way discriminating him without wanting to do so. Well, now, what about, perhaps you have read that Sagistopedia, the Silent Way, and community language learning were, let's say, methods that in a way were born or are rooted in humanism. Okay, now the thing is that we would say that the focus, let's say, is more psychological rather than linguistic in these approaches. Have you noticed? And there is this relevance of the concept of anxiety to be released, right? And learning, the learning process to be appreciated and acknowledged all the time. Okay, what about social interactionism? Why is it that it says that in social interactionism we have the influence of cognitivism and humanism? Why cognitivism there? Any idea or any?
Because the child learns by being in contact with the topics.
I think you said that the cognitive, what is a topic?
But the child learns by being in contact.
Because yes, in fact, I mean, the development of the cognitive development, in a way, right, is studied thoroughly and is considered an element. Those, let's say, stages or, let's say, developmental periods, and the interaction becomes, let's say, an element or an actor, an important element in developing these cognitive, let's say, abilities. So if there is no stimuli, your intelligence will not be exploited. It may be there, but it will not, let's say, be exploited or boosted. I liked the fact that there is acknowledgement of caretakers, of parents, of the school, in terms of thinking about not only the family, but also the culture you are immersed, right? And in fact, this social or cultural interaction, social interactionism is, let's say, a position that psychologists and linguists take that in a way depicts a human being that cannot be thought as just as an individual having inner feelings, but his inner feelings are always constructed upon the others. I'll give you that is what we call intersubjetividad. Can you tell me, what do you understand by intersubjetividad? Say it in Spanish, because it took me a long time to understand it. Es una palabra que todo el mundo usa y da la impresión que si no sabes lo que es intersubjetividad, estás como por debajo de, más vale ni digas que no sabes lo que es la intersubjetividad. ¿Qué es la intersubjetividad? Porque tiene como inter, con el otro, subjetividad, sujeto. A ver, ¿quién sabe qué es la intersubjetividad? ¿No?
Perhaps cuando diferentes puntos de vista se encuentran y de eso sacas algo.
Viene por ahí. Sí, tiene que ver con cómo te ves a partir de los otros. Es decir, vos creas tu propia imagen o tu propio conocimiento de vos mismo a partir de lo que los otros te transmiten que vos sos. ¿Se entendió? Es decir, si vos tenés gente alrededor que te está diciendo todo el tiempo, ay, pero vos sos re bueno para las lenguas, vos sos re bueno para las lenguas, vos sos re bueno para las lenguas, por eso que te están diciendo, vos querés en lengua. Te ves a vos mismo como un experto en lengua. No porque vos estés convencido que lo sos, sino que te convencieron los otros. Ahora, no hay que, digamos, lo terminás internalizando y haciéndolo una creencia sobre vos mismo. No siempre la intersubjetividad juega a favor. Yo les di un ejemplo que es positivo. También te puede jugar en contra. Porque es cuando vos te terminan, si a vos te dicen no servís, no servís, no servís, terminás convenciéndote que sos un inservible. Y después andás diciendo que sos un inútil. ¿Se entiende? Ojo con lo que decimos. Porque a veces, muchas veces no les pasa que terminan diciendo algo de ustedes que en realidad no sé si es verdad, si es una verdad que dicen los otros o si es una verdad tuya. Ahí está el juego de la intersubjetividad. Hasta dónde es verdad tuya y hasta dónde es verdad que vos te creíste que te lo dijeron. ¿Ok? Esa es la intersubjetividad. Es un concepto psicológico. Me tomó tiempo entenderlo. And how is that important in the English classroom? That is the key question.
I think it is important because we as teachers should create a good environment so as the students can develop self-confidence, autonomy, independence.
That's it. I mean,
I think it's important.
Yes, you are supposed to give, let's say, to encourage the students to boost confidence and all that. I mean, not to paint a world that is where everything is like in Disney World, right? But, well, at least to be encouraging, to make them aware of difficulties and help them work them out. Well, there are many things that we can do, but the thing is that will strengthen their self-esteem, right? We should not be, let's say, negative, right? So as to the extreme of saying, well, this is not worth doing it. Because there are some teachers that sometimes even say, for example, if I say, yo no creo que los alumnos vayan a aprender demasiado, así que como pobres tienen muy poco en la casa, ¿para qué yo les voy a exigir tanto? Ese es un discurso en el ambiente docente. ¿Y qué pasa después? ¿Qué pasa? Termina ocurriendo, digamos, que en realidad el docente que piensa así de los alumnos los termina perjudicando en vez de ayudarlos. ¿Se entiende? Porque ahí ya como docente te posicionaste en una situación donde vos ves a los alumnos con capacidades inferiores por circunstancias que ni siquiera los chicos pueden modificar. Y ya decís, ay no, ¿para qué les voy a enseñar esto si no lo van a entender? Es peligroso eso. Que no necesariamente tiene que ver con la intersubjetividad. A veces no somos tan abiertos para decirlo. Pero hay un montón de mensajes que a veces los docentes dan que se terminan interpretando así. No necesariamente lo tenés que decir. Decir, ay, yo no creo que ustedes vayan a entender esto. Ahora, si vos les decís, bueno, a este tema lo van a tener que estudiar mucho porque es muy difícil, ya le estás diciendo muy difícil para ustedes, entre paréntesis, aunque no lo digas. No hay temas difíciles. Uno tiene que saber preparar a los alumnos para que tengan las herramientas para enfrentar distintos desafíos cognitivos. Es difícil si mi alumno no está preparado para hacerlo. Y yo lo expuse a eso. ¿Sí? Ahí el responsable soy yo. Pero si yo lo voy a exponer siempre a cosas básicas que no los hacen pensar, ya los estoy dejando en un plano muy inferior comparado con otros alumnos en otras aulas, con otros docentes. Es muy peligroso a veces lo que el docente piensa de los alumnos. Sobre todo pensando en los chicos que, digamos, que no tienen tantos privilegios en cuanto a lo económico y social. No se olviden que no es solamente lo económico, tiene que ver lo social también. ¿Qué pasa con mis padres? ¿Cuánto mis padres me estimulan a mí a que yo sea mejor? Igualmente no es matemático, porque vos podés tener muy buenas familias, familias con gente estudiada, que tiene hijos totalmente desmotivados. Bueno, ahí probablemente viene por otro lado la cosa. And what about this Vygotsky? What did you understand about Vygotsky? We have 2 minutes and we have to resume the other session, okay? Let's talk about Vygotsky a little bit, or at least introduce some of his ideas. Language is, let's say, one of the most important tools for learning, right? And for communicating and transmitting culture, because in language, right, you find not only speech, but symbols and signs. And culture, right, cannot be divided into parts. He has a holistic view on learning. And learning and, let's say, and culture, of course, it cannot be divided. Let's say, is the Argentinian culture the addition of tango, folklore, cumbia, and all that? No, it cannot be divided into parts. It's a whole. Just to give you an example, right? Okay. Now, he has this concept of zone of proximal development, and we're going to discuss that not in the next session that we are joining now, but I think that we will have to meet again on Monday because I want to round up. All right, we will have to at least next week to meet twice. And now, after we resume this session, we are going to talk about organization of groups and what will happen with Seminario 1. Okay?